Hello, everyone, and welcome to GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast I run over here on YouTube.com. And this is a special episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle because we are going through a WWE pay-per-view, and that is right, it's TLC 2019's pay-per-view. And I'm going to go off and just say it here and now as I look down for whatever reason instead of straight at the camera for you guys. For the most part, I thought the show was really good. That ending that they did tonight was a WTF. What were you really going for with that? And I'll get to that fully when I get to it on that particular one. But for the most part, I thought this was a rather enjoyable show with maybe a couple of down points here and there, but some also unique ways of them performing some of these matches to go along with it. I really enjoyed the pre-show match with Humberto Carrillo and Andrade. I thought it was a good way of playing off of what they did on Monday Night Raw. They continued to play the storyline of Zelina Vega and Andrade not getting along at this point in time. Not that's like all the victories being cost because of this, and this, and it's like little subtle things that are making Andrade mad at Zelina for how he's losing matches. And I thought they did a pretty good job on this match. The only really gripe I have on this one is, like, for some odd reason, during this match, they had 2 commercial breaks, all to also provide another commercial for what was happening later in the show. So basically 2 TLC breaks in this match to advertise the pay-per-view for later. I guess it's because they're streaming those not only on WWE Network, but other things to go along with it. It's the only real gripe I had on this particular match. Andrade does get busted open in this match right above, right around his left eye. So he actually gets busted open the hard way. You do have some good high-flying spots inside of this match. The twisting dive that Humberto does from the inside of the ring to the outside I thought was great. The foot stomp, though, I'm not the biggest fan of that foot stomp where someone holds themselves up and then the other one does the double foot stomp onto them. I'm not a big fan of that as a finish, but I am kind of a fan of how the move works as a close finish or something to go along with that. And the way that Andrade does it kind of sets it up a little bit better because he usually does it after somebody is catching themselves on the ropes after he trips them up or something like that. Humberto is trying to catch himself and preventing himself from falling all the way, so he catches himself, and then Andrade does the double foot stomp and goes to the ring apron to go along with it. I thought that was actually really good. The match comes to a close with a reverse Rana, as it looked like Andrade was going to go for a moonsault off of the top rope. Humberto stops him, does a reverse Rana from the ropes, and then hits the moonsault to pick up the victory. More arguing from Zelina and Andrade after the match, mostly with Andrade being upset and Zelina trying to figure out what the heck's going on. I thought this was a really good match, very enjoyable. It even plays off the aspect of why was this on the pre-show to go along with it. I thought it was just a really enjoyable match, and good to see that they got some kind of spotlight to go along with that. The beginning of the show starts with a Firefly Funhouse video package for the entire show. So you have Bray kind of doing his thing with the Firefly Funhouse as they're putting little snippets of the other matches that are happening throughout the night, and I thought they really did a really good job with this particular aspect of it. And we start off the night with a ladder match with the New Day defending the SmackDown Tag Team titles against the Revival, and honestly, this was, again, very enjoyable on that one. I thought they came off really good inside of this match. Kofi Kingston doing his normal acrobatic stuff, but also it costing him in some cases as well. He does the acrobatic jump into the ring because they were going to throw him into the ladder that was sitting on the ring ropes or sitting on the ring apron. The Revival were going to throw him into that. He jumps through the ropes and looks like he's going to go do a baseball slide into the ladder, but the Revival pick up the ladder and start doing like a pendulum or a guillotine style hitting him with the ladder there. Big E misses a big splash and goes crashing through the ladder on the ring apron as well. We were getting lots of crazy bits here, but also decent selling to go along with it. On those particular ones. Eventually, of course, in every sense that you had the New Day, sorry, I'm stumbling over the words there for a brief moment. The New Day, or Big E, stops the Revival from getting the tag team titles. They continue doing a couple of other bits to go along with it. They eventually do the Shatter Machine off the ladder to Big E, which sends him to the outside. And also, no, actually, they did it to Kofi, as Big E was just out at that point in time. That sends him to the outside of the ring for a while. Big E does hit that crazy spear that it scares me every time he does it, but he hits it again, going through the ropes into the outside of the ring. It was absolutely crazy with that. And then, of course, also Big E hitting the big ending off of one of the ladders as well. Like I said, some really good spots in here. This is more of a, I wouldn't say it's more of a spot fest on that one, but it's a very enjoyable area, and they take their time getting from each spot to each spot, and also keeping a fast pace to go along with it on that one. So they do sell, but they keep it as fast paced as they possibly can, and I felt it coming off very enjoyable. Eventually, of course, towards the end, the New Day pick up the victory, and with Kofi getting the tag team titles. They celebrate in the ring with Big E and Kofi, and New Day wins the match, which I thought was a very good match. It was very enjoyable with everything that they went with. And again, tag team match to start off the show for tag team titles, especially with New Day and Revival, and they deliver. And I think they started off this show really well. You had a Baron Corbin promo for his match later in the night. Not much really being said there. Up next, we have Buddy Murphy going up against Aleister Black. And, this is nice little subtle nuances in storytelling that, they kept the pace pretty fast, but they were telling little stories here and there, even before the match began. Because before the match began, what does Buddy Murphy do? He comes out there before Aleister Black makes his entrance. He sits down in the ring, Indian style, kind of like how Aleister Black would do. He'd flip into the ring and then sit there. Aleister Black notices this. Instead of going to the normal rope that he does that goes towards the hard camera, he walks back around to where Buddy Murphy is, does the flip in the ring, sits, and they just sit there and stare at each other for a little bit before the match begins. I like that little nice nuance. Buddy Murphy, throughout a good chunk of this match, was trying to mock Aleister Black as much as he possibly can in there to make it feel like, he's not only just the heel, but he's just going to be kind of like, not even really mega heelish, but just being cocky and arrogant at every aspect of what he was doing inside the ring, and that he was going to be the one that stops Aleister Black at this point in time to go along with it. Aleister Black does get his nose busted open. I don't know if it was broken. King continually says, like, broken nose, and shooting on that aspect. I mean, that's a possibility as well. But he was definitely bleeding from the nose inside of this match. Again, I thought they kept a very fast pace here with multiple striking areas. You had Buddy Murphy doing the cheeky Nandos where Aleister Black was stuck on the ring ropes. He had his head stuck between the turnbuckle and his body, and Buddy Murphy did multiple super kicks to Aleister Black's face. He comes out with a powerbomb, gets a 2 count. He has multiple knee strikes, V-trigger, and also how is Kota Ibushi's knee? The Kota, I can't really say. I'm not going to butcher the name, but the Kota Ibushi style knee to the face. He gets 2 counts for all those. Eventually, towards the end of the match, you had all this different trading of strikes and everything, because you had that on the side of Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy. You're having trading of strikes one more time. Aleister Black gets a little bit of advantage. Buddy Murphy gets a little bit of advantage, and then out of nowhere, Black Mass roundhouse kick to the face, and Aleister Black picks up the victory. This was a good match. It was very enjoyable, fast paced, but the other little subtle nuances, especially right at the beginning of the matches and the mocking of Buddy Murphy towards Aleister Black throughout the entire match, I thought were nice little touches there that made this match a little bit more enjoyable. After this, you have a promo between with Rusev, basically saying he's happy that Lana and Lashley want to get married, blah blah blah. He even makes a joke, is like, because if they get married, I don't have to pay alimony or something like that. The storyline is what it is, and it's definitely getting a lot of attention on those particular ones, and honestly it's getting a lot of views towards at least the YouTube side. I don't know how it really translates onto the actual television show itself. Up next was the Viking Raiders doing an open challenge, and it was going to be with Gallows and Anderson. You know, this match itself, well, it kind of was what it was. They also had this weird aspect, and they kept cutting to it a little bit here and there, and you kind of knew where this was going to go because they kept cutting to it, because they got 4 fans that were sitting at ringside, and there was a bunch of KFC there because I guess they win something with that and everything to go along with it. So you have that, and they're just sitting at ringside. They're not even. And I'm not even saying behind the barricade. They're at ringside with it. And they're just sitting behind the table there. So everybody's like, yeah, I kind of have a feeling where this is going on this one. And we were not disappointed, I guess, on that particular one, because it went exactly where you thought it was going to go. Honestly, this match wasn't too bad. On every sense of it, but not really much to speak about on this particular one to go along with it. It does end in a double countout, which of course I've never been a big fan of the double countout, especially on pay-per-view side, but it is an open challenge, so I guess they're going to continue on with this story. They don't I guess they don't want to have Gallows and Anderson lose to the Viking Raiders quite yet. On that one, so you have the Raw Tag Team Champions going up against their quote-unquote best tag team in the world to go along with that, based off of what they did at Crown Jewel. So you still have that story going, and no real definitive winner is happening at this point in time. After the match, they go to Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows go to put the was it Eric? Yeah, Eric. Into the through the table, which was set up at ringside, which was the KFC table, which I absolutely love the fact that everybody was sitting there was like, they didn't grab the other sides or anything, but they grabbed the chicken. They did grab the chicken. All of them grabbed the buckets of it, and then they got rid of the mashed potatoes, everything off of the table, and they put and it looks like they're going to put Eric through the table. Ivar stops that from happening, and the Viking Raiders put Carl Anderson through the table, and it was what it was. Like I said, not a big fan of the double count outside. Never really have been. Probably never will be on that one, especially on pay-per-view. To go along with it. But all in all, I thought the match was okay. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. So up next, we have a Miz promo. A Miz promo basically about what he was going through with having to face Bray Wyatt a little bit later tonight. And honestly, I thought this promo was, again, quite good. The other promos, you didn't really get much out of it, but you felt like you got something a little bit more out of the Miz. Maybe go out of your way to kind of watch that one, because word for word, I do not have what he said here, but it definitely, you got a different vibe from his promo versus the other promos leading into the matches for later in the evening. Up next, you have Baron Corbin going up against Roman Reigns, and this is a TLC match. So this is of course a different aspect of the TLC match, because there's nothing to hang above the ring. So it's not traditional ladder match rules. It is essentially a no disqualification match at this point in time, because the kendo stick does get involved at some point in time in this match as well. So it became tables, ladders, chairs, and a kendo stick. Okay, well, I guess we'll run with that. We'll run with that particular one. Before the match, Roman destroys Corbin's security. They fight through the crowd. This eventually allows Corbin. Eventually, Corbin gets control, and he's starting to use all the different weapons: the chairs, the ladders, and the tables don't really play too much into it in the early stages of it. Baron Corbin does hit that choke slam backbreaker to Reigns, which really only gets a 2. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Afterwards, it looked like Corbin was going to. Sorry, I'm going through the notes here, making sure that I'm trying to hit every point that I put down there on there. Corbin tries to mock Roman Reigns' a spear, at which he does get countered, and he gets thrown into a chair that he had set up in the turnbuckle earlier in the match on that particular one. Corbin does use a can of dog food. He does use a can of dog food. It was unopened on that one, so they didn't try to play off of that again on that one. So he uses the can of dog food to gain the advantage, and then he puts Roman Reigns through a table with that one. Now, honestly, when you're really thinking about this, because the dog food things come up a couple of different times over the, showing up on Friday Night SmackDown, on Friday with what they were teasing with that, but also with the humiliation bit from the week before. You know what? Honestly, I feel like WWE missed a prime opportunity to get a sponsorship from Pedigree Dog Food. Play off words there with Triple H, with Pedigree, to go along with it. I don't know why I had to explain that. I think you kind of would have figured that out. Back with what they were going through with the match, though. Roman Reigns does hit a Samoan drop through the announce table. It looks like Roman Reigns is in firm control. It looks like Roman Reigns is going for a spear on the outside of the ring. Bam! Gets hit with a super kick by Dolph Ziggler, who shows up, and they beat down Roman Reigns for a little bit, and then they beat up a timekeeper as well to go along with this. Afterwards, more security's coming out. Everything with that side looked like Roman Reigns was getting a bit of control. He's fighting off all the security. He's trying to fight off the Ziggler and the Revival now. The Revival come out, and it just eventually becomes too much for Roman Reigns. They get him back. They get him back in the ring as he goes for a spear. Dolph Ziggler throws a chair into his face, hits the zigzag, shatter machine. End of days on the chair. Corbin wins. Honestly, the match itself was fine. In that sense, for whether I guess they were going in the end in terms of story, they're continuing on with this. Looks like Roman's going to get the victory at some other point in time. They put Roman over huge in this match because it takes a lot to beat Roman. And I'm going to talk more about this a little bit later, because you get a nice little snippet later after Rusev and Lashley, and it ties into what I'm going to be talking about at the end of this as well. But up next, you have The Miz going up against Bray Wyatt. And I like this. I liked what they did with this because it just felt different and unique. And that's the aspect of what they were looking for. And I actually enjoyed this from Bray Wyatt, because Bray Wyatt's coming out all smiles. He's being the happy-go-lucky, I'm just so happy to be here, Bray Wyatt, like from Firefly Funhouse. But you get little snippets here and there because Miz is in control. He's overly angry for what he had done, for what Bray Wyatt had done to his family. And so, but then you eventually get those little snippets of Bray goes into more of a serious face, and then he comes back out of it, and he goes back into it a little bit later, and he's even saying he's sorry towards the end. Miz stays in control for most of the match. He does do the arm breaker Pentagon Jr. style. I'm sure somebody else had done it beforehand as well to go along with it, but the Pentagon Jr. is the one that kind of reminds me of that particular arm breaker at this time. But Bray Wyatt goes nuts on the outside of the ring, and he starts ramming that arm that was just put into that arm breaker into the barricade to try to reset it. So he eventually can still use it throughout the match. So he's getting rid of the pain. Like he had said before, he had learned to not feel pain. with those particulars of everything to go along with that. And those were the little snippets that I was liking throughout this entire match. And it was really well done. Eventually, The Miz gets caught with a Sister Abigail on the outside of the ring. He barely beats the 10 count and then gets hit with Sister Abigail again in the inside of the ring. Bray Wyatt picks up the victory. After the match, because you had seen Bray Wyatt go into that non-happy state and then back to it, and almost saying, it's like, oh, I'm sorry for what I did. It's like, what did I fully do here, type thing. And then you get a picture of the Fiend showing up on there. It's like, oh, like, is the Fiend telling Bray to do something? And eventually Bray's like, okay, I'll do it. And he brings out that giant mallet. And it looks like he was going to hit The Miz with that mallet. But the lights start going down. Like, the Fiend's going to show up. It was like, boom, all that type of style for that one. But lo and behold, who shows up? It's Daniel Bryan hitting him with a running knee. He has the new haircut, new beard. He basically went back to American Dragon style Daniel Bryan with that one. He does eventually go for the mallet after catching Bray with some kicks and another running knee. He goes for the mallet. Lights go down. When they come back up, Bray Wyatt's gone. Just Daniel Bryan in the ring. He's looking at the Universal title. I thought this was well done. Like I said, it's a different aspect of a wrestling match with Bray Wyatt. You see it with the Fiend, but this one even felt more different because you could tell that it's like Bray Wyatt is feeling pain to its own degree, but he's laughing it off. He's doing things like this. It's not like with Fiend where he's just like popping back up like a horror movie monster. This is a different variation with it. This is that almost crazy psychotic type of area where he's just laughing everything off and switching from this serious mean to a happy-go-lucky. And I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought this was really enjoyable on that particular one. And I thought it came off really good on that side of everything. Up next, we have the tables match, and it is Bobby Lashley going up against Rusev. And, you know, honestly, I actually kind of like this match. I thought this was a decent match. In the end, I thought this was a decent match because they do tease table spots from time to time. But also, Rusev and Lashley were finding different ways of not getting hit with the table. Rusev just tried to bring in the table really early. Lana pulls it out of the ring. They both fight and tease multiple different table spots to the point that Rusev fights his way out of one particular table spot inside the ring. Lashley was stuck at the ropes and fights out going through the table by jumping over the table and going to the floor on that one. I thought there were some decent little bits here. Rusev does eventually gain control and uses and they started using kendo sticks in here, and also they pull a guardrail out. Rusev goes to the crowd, pulls out one of the metal guardrails, brings it back to the ring. He uses it, sets it up at ringside. Lashley gains control and puts him through that guardrail. That, of course, doesn't end the match because it's not a table to go along with it. Lashley comes in and repeatedly uses a kendo stick on Rusev, and you start seeing the welts and everything starting up on Rusev on that one. But, of course, Lashley drops the kendo stick. He's going to go for a spear. That allows for Rusev to pick up the kendo stick and start using it on him. It looks like Rusev is going to finally put Lashley through a table. Lana comes in, jumps on Rusev's back, rakes his eyes, allows Lashley to spear Rusev. He hits the table, doesn't go through it, and then he does a belly-to-belly suplex through the other table that was set up in the ring. That picks up the match, and Lashley ends up winning. Honestly, I thought this was enjoyable. I thought this was an enjoyable match in the end. It wasn't, it's not the best style match or anything to go along with it, but I found it enjoyable. Honestly, I don't think there was a match on the card that I didn't really find enjoyable in its own right on those particulars. Even the even the main event match. But like I said, there's a little thing on that match that really irks me off. And like I said, I'll talk about that in a brief moment. But before they get to the main event match, Street Profits backstage, they were kind of doing what they were originally doing a few months back, you know, talking about the night, everything like that. And Dawkins, or like Montez Ford, is talking about, you know, Lashley and Lana can now just be together. And Dawkins is like, dude, man, get a vasectomy. What? That came out of nowhere. that one kind of came out of nowhere. But eventually you start seeing a brawl backstage, which the brawl consisted of Baron Corbin, Roman Reigns, Dolph Ziggler, New Day, were all brawling backstage right where the Street Profits were. Eventually the Street Profits join in with that as they end that particular area, and we go into the main event, which was Becky Lynch and Charlotte going up against Asuka and Kairi Sane, and a TLC match for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. And honestly, I felt like this match was actually really good, because it felt like they were going absolutely insane out there. And it had sloppiness to it, but it had the right type. It had that right type of almost believability sloppiness to where it just felt like it gave you that feeling. It's like, oh, this actually feels like it's going down at that point in time. And they came up with some pretty good spots on this particular one, to be honest with you. Kairi Sane eats a big boot from Charlotte Flair at the on the apron, and Charlotte and Becky have control early on. They're doing this bit where they're trying to one-up each other, so from one announce table to another, they're just tossing Kairi Sane over it on those particulars. But this allows for Asuka to fully bring in a chair and gain control for a little bit, because Kairi was, you know, recovering. So Asuka gains a little bit of control, but Becky and Charlotte get it back. They in power bomb position, throw Asuka into the ring post, and then they go back after Kairi. She eventually goes under, or they don't actually go for Kairi at that time. They go into the ring to start getting the ladder set up. Kairi starts throwing chairs in the ring. Some make it into the ring, some don't. This is where a little bit of the sloppiness gets in there, but like I said, right type of sloppiness, at least in my own sense, at least my own area. So she's starting to throw chairs in the ring. She throws one at Becky. She throws one at Charlotte, and eventually Charlotte and Becky throw a back at Kairi. Kairi goes under the ring. They go after Kairi to pull her out because they went after her. And when they pull her out, Kairi has a fire extinguisher and uses it on both of them. Nice little spot there. I actually ended up liking that. They do tie up Charlotte in one of the announcers' chairs, one of like the office chair style with a kendo stick, and Asuka delivers a bunch of kicks to Charlotte from there, and it just went into an area of them coming up with inventive ways. They tie Becky Lynch to one of the ladders, which Charlotte has to untie Becky Lynch a little bit later, so she starts to untie her. But Asuka and Kairi stop her, but she loosened up the tie enough to where Becky could get free on that particular one. Lots of kendo stick shots through there. Becky puts Asuka through one of the tables. Kairi hits a double DDT on the outside of the ring. Towards the end of the match, you have and this is where this one got a little bit weird, in all honesty, because I guess Kairi missed something up with a spear or something like that. So Charlotte ends up putting Kairi through a table with a pretty much like forcing her up powerbomb. Later on in the match, towards the end, Asuka, it looks like Charlotte was going to go up to the top rope to do a moonsault to the outside of the ring through Asuka through a table, but Asuka stops her and powerbomb Charlotte off the top rope through the table on the outside. Charlotte was done. Asuka does eat a couple of Bexploders on the outside of the ring. You go back into the ring itself, and it looks like Becky was going to pick up the victory, and because Kairi was down, Asuka was down. but there was like we had mentioned before, that Asuka and Kairi had tied Becky to the ladder at one point. Well, that rope was still on the ladder, still tied to the ladder. So Becky gets up to the top area. Asuka takes the rope, pulling the ladder down, forcing Becky to hangman herself onto the top rope. Asuka goes up and picks up the titles and picks up the victory. Now, this is where it gets really weird, because I don't even think it was 5 seconds. I honestly don't even think it was 5 seconds after this match ended, which was your main event of the show, that brawl, and they make mention to it at somewhere in the match as well. It's like, oh, that brawl's still going on backstage. Well, lo and behold, that brawl spills out to the out back into the crowd. This is like no more than 5 seconds after, like 5, maybe 10 seconds after this match. Music cuts, they're brawling. All of them are brawling again. Baron Corbin and Roman brawl to the top, or brawl into the staging, or the crowd area where the stairs were, and Roman spears Corbin off of that staging into everybody else in the crowd, and that's how they go off the air. And that one irks me. That one irks me on that particular one. And it's not an aspect of, oh, that wasn't a cool thing or anything like that, but this is a pay-per-view. This is not Friday Night SmackDown. This is not Monday Night Raw. That ending was a Raw or SmackDown ending. Let's be 100% fair on that one, because you had your main event match going on in the ring, and you don't give them any time to celebrate, to go along with that. You just cut right to this. And that's how we're going to go off the air. Felt very Raw or SmackDown, where you can take something that wasn't necessarily tied to your main event for the TV show and do something like that at the end, which would have been probably fine. But here, shouldn't they give them a little bit more time to celebrate over a definitive victory like that? Because that was pretty much a definitive victory for Asuka and Kairi, just overshadowed for no reason by a brawl that started earlier in the night that they could have done for the match itself, because for the TLC match itself. And if they decided to end the show that way, they could have done that TLC match last then, to go along with it, because it makes that aspect of the TLC match make no sense, because the Revival just went through a thing with Big E and Kofi. They come out and help him they come out and help Baron in the TLC match. Who helps Roman? Nobody helped Roman, but now they're helping Roman afterwards. They could have tied that all into one match, and they could have ended the show that way, where, okay, maybe they came out there and it was still just a little too much, and Baron Corbin picks up the victory, but the brawl continues on, and they fight into the crowd, and then they do that. But this whole aspect that you had the TLC match earlier in the night, and then all of a sudden you go and have them continue brawling afterwards, and they interrupt the main event after an aspect of, wouldn't you want your winners, who just beat basically the top 2 female stars for the women's tag team titles? It could have been a definitive moment for the women's tag team titles, and they gave it all like 5-10 seconds before it's like, over here now. And it just irked the living crap out of me on that particular one, because, you know, we've all known that those women's tag team titles haven't meant much. They had a chance to make something definitive with the first victory back at Elimination Chamber with Bayley and Sasha. It didn't really do much of anything. They lose those titles at WrestleMania to the Iconics, who didn't do much with it. At least Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross were trying to do a little bit more with it. Same with Asuka and Kairi, because, you know, they were at least being put on TV more often to go along with it. This match could have made those titles, and they honestly put on a pretty good match, for a pretty good TLC match, and you had a definitive style victory for Asuka and Kairi. But what do? You give them 5-10 seconds, and it's like, over here now. You want the focus over here. Don't focus on this. That was actually what we, just made for the last match. Over here. Over here. I'm just going to keep doing this. Maybe I'll just keep doing this for the rest of the entire time on that one. And it just kind of really irked me off. And honestly, it was probably the most down point of the show. I'm not saying that the execution on that brawl was not bad, or that was bad or anything. It was just poorly booked in that sense, in the terms of timing and everything on that particular side of me. And that was where it irked me off. Like I said, the performances for the brawl and everything I thought was fine, but the timing of the booking of it was just like, why? Why are we ending a pay-per-view with a Raw or SmackDown style ending? In this case, a SmackDown, because they're all SmackDown people to go along with it. And it just, it just ended out irking me off. It just ended out like putting me in the wrong spot. Something just didn't feel right about that in that particular side, especially with the factors like, oh, now Roman's getting help against these guys when he couldn't get that help for his match. It's what it was. It's what it was. Honestly, I thought it was a pretty good show on that one. I thought the matches themselves, I thought, were actually quite good on that end. It was just the ending of the show that really kind of put a little bit of a sour taste to it, to what I thought was at least a decently thumbs up show to go along with it. So with that being said, that is my review for WWE TLC. I thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed what you saw here, give a like, comment, subscribe, however you really feel about it at that point in time. So again, I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.